Lawsome by ConsultWebs. Breakthrough insights to build a thriving law firm with your host, Tanner Jones.
Hello, Lawsome listeners. Today on our show, I'm excited to be talking with Bernadette Catalana, partner at MG+M The Law Firm. Bernadette's practice focuses on toxic exposure cases, Child Victims Act claims, and other mass torts. For one of her Fortune 100 clients, she serves as National Coordinating Counsel, leading and collaborating with lawyers from all over the United States to tactfully defend hundreds of cases each and every year. Recognized as a super lawyer for 9 consecutive years, Bernadette is also an active mentor, working with young lawyers to develop their skills and ultimately their careers. Today's topic is managing mass tort litigation. Welcome, Bernadette. Thank you for joining the show today.
Hi, Tanner. Thanks for having me on the show. Really excited to talk to you.
Good. And today's topic, obviously, on mass torts. This is seemingly a growing topic in the world of legal. You know, there's naturally both sides, plaintiffs and defendants, and you serve on the defendant's side. And I'd like to really explore this topic in depth on a number of different angles given your experience. And so let's start really with just the practical nature of how complex mass tort cases can be. They require or can require extensive resources, money, time, and everything in between to manage these cases. So based on your experience, what have you seen are some of the key challenges in managing mass tort litigation, and how can lawyers effectively navigate those challenges?
Well, Tanner, that's a great question, and the answer is actually really basic. Think volume. When you think mass tort, think volume. So many lawyers have on their personal docket of cases that they're responsible for, maybe 20, 30, even 40 cases would be a lot of cases. When you think of a mass tort lawyer, people may have as many as 4,000 cases that they're responsible for a particular client. And they aren't necessarily solely responsible, but they're participating in those cases and actively working them up. So it's the volume that is really staggering. And that's where organization is really the biggest key for a defendant in defending themselves in the mass tort world. In that context, you have to be organized, because if you aren't, you're going to miss a deadline, you're going to miss a disclosure date, there's going to be something that you don't happen to get, and then then all kinds of things can happen for your client and for yourself, for your practice. So I would say organization is the key counter to that volume.
Makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's so true. You know, especially most lawyers, when they may be hearing this and thinking, they thought they were slammed with 150 cases on file, right? This is a completely different ballgame when it comes to this, and that naturally leads to how you've already alluded to the importance of organization and efficiency. So let's move into that angle and how you've ultimately managed that for your clients, implementing like a robust case management system or any other technology to manage contacts or follow-ups or action steps. Those are crucial in a high volume practice, especially a mass tort litigation practice. So what tools do you believe have had some of the biggest impacts to streamlining processes within your practice or building any kind of efficiencies to improve the outcomes for your clients?
Good old-fashioned communication is the number one tool. Because you're not doing this by yourself. I mean, chances are, if you are involved defending mass tort cases, you are part of a greater picture of cases that are probably in different areas across the country. So you're going to have counterparts. Say if you're a local counsel, there will be somebody out there who is local counsel in another state. It's important to have, in my mind, central communication, both with the client, so the client knows what's going on, and knows what is up ahead on the docket and what the challenges are, and also communication with the people in the trenches who are defending the cases day to day, taking the depositions, filing the motions. So communication among all the key players, it doesn't sound high tech, But trust me, communication is the thing. And obviously communication itself, the means to communicate, has gotten more high tech and easier as time has gone on. I mean, I was marveling over the weekend, a core group of my mass tort team. We have a text chain. If a significant develop happens, we are automatically on it. The chain includes our client contact. And as things are unfolding, we're able to get the client information about what's happening. I mean, there are times where I have a lawyer in the courtroom who's texting back play by play what's happening on a motion hearing, which is fantastic. It allows us to be very nimble. So the communication part is old-fashioned, but using the technology that's available, that's something that everybody needs to be up on and needs to do.
Yeah, I think we would all agree. We've all had experiences of the pitfalls of under communicating, and I think it's so important to realize, it's like even with thousands of cases, some of the basic, most important things remain the most important things. But you hit on a good point, and that is, continuing to evolve as technology evolves, and it sounds as though your legal team is doing that. And it's fascinating to me too that, you still have lawyers today that are still holding on to some of these old tools, if you will, and ultimately limiting their ability to serve their client. I don't know if you have any experiences with that or want to share anything, but it's just such an important piece.
I am so glad you brought that up, Tanner, because one of the messages, and I do a CLE to support women in the practice of law. And one of the things that I recommend to all the women that I talk to is don't get left behind by technology. Your practice evolves. Your ability to use the available technology has to evolve. And look at what we all learned over the pandemic, right? I am sure that there are people that you cannot believe how facile they are now using Zoom or other video platforms. Well, they had to be able to do it. I know mediators who say they will never go back to in-person mediations because the video mediations are just as effective and cost effective because people aren't traveling. They're not incurring airplane ticket expenses or having to stay in a hotel, and also the time savings of not having to travel. It's really exciting. So if you can avail yourself, if you're one of the people who, I actually was on a call yesterday with someone saying, oh yeah, I only do editing on hard paper. And I thought, ooh, wow, okay. You do you, but there's no way that I would be able to do that in my world, especially given the number of motions that I look at in any given day. I can't have them all printed out. I wouldn't be able to carry them all. So I think technology is exciting, and I think we do all need to avail ourselves to knowing how to use it. And the pandemic was a wonderful time for many people to up their skills, and I think a lot of people did, and it's really fascinating. I think our clients are better off for it, and they're really noticing a lot of savings because even though the pandemic is over, many courts are still doing appearances by video.
And that's such an important piece. It's like you're not only serving your own business and your practice by finding time savings and efficiencies, you're serving your client. You're reducing fees for them. You're making the process much more efficient and probably even streamlining the ability to reach a settlement or a verdict and just kind of closing out the case. So lots of really powerful things there just by committing to over communicating. Such a lost art, unfortunately. But let's keep moving, because I think we've hit on a couple different areas here in MG+M's practice, especially on the mass tort side. But I'd like to move into the business development aspect, and this is somewhat of a I think some lawyers kind of tiptoe around this topic. Somewhat of a delicate topic, especially on both sides of the table, plaintiffs and defendants. Maybe plaintiffs are much more known to be those marketing attorneys and being intentional about investing in ways to grow their brand. But I'd love to hear from your perspective. How do you intentionally attract business or intentionally foster trust within your target market? Can you speak to that and your experiences in that?
I can. The number one thing that we have to market is our good work product. So again, when I talk to other lawyers and give these CLEs, the number one thing that I remind people is be a good lawyer. If you're a good lawyer, you have a product to sell. You're selling yourself. So always do your best. Always get your best work product out there. I would say that's number one. Now, we're going to say, let's just accept that everyone does that and they're putting their best work product out there. How do you get the word out about that? And I think we're in a world that has changed in a really good way, again, because of technology. I look at my own practice and I think of, how do I market myself? I'm certainly out there on LinkedIn. I do LinkedIn posts. I made a very definite decision 9 years ago that I was going to really develop my ability to be a thought leader in the area, two areas that I am really passionate about. It's promoting women in the practice of law and mentoring younger lawyers. So I started writing posts, just little mentoring moments of things that I've learned along the way and wanted to share with others. Practice tips. I know I'm always looking for ways to make my practice more efficient. So I figured that other people would be like-minded. And I remember putting my first post up and maybe 40 people looked at it. And I thought, okay, that's a start. Last year, when the Dobbs decision came out, I waited about a week. I was walking around with a post in my head, and I just wanted to reflect on the significance of that decision for women in our country. And I wrote a very honest essay about the impact of that decision and just the bewilderment of many women. And over 19,000 people looked at that post and interacted with that post. And I got messages from a couple of federal court judges, and it was reposted many, many times. The comments were very, very heartfelt. And I thought, wow, isn't that interesting? So in 2014, I set out to become a thought leader. That doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen, and it's every single time you put yourself out there in a post with your thoughts. Now, I got some rather nasty responses to that post, as well as one can expect when it's a controversial topic, but I invite that too. It is all about thought, and it's diversity of thought. So I thought that was very gratifying for me, and it made me realize that, just, again, having a plan. It didn't have to be a grand plan, just a plan to develop myself and offer my thoughts to the world. That's a way of marketing yourself as a lawyer, because when you think about it, baseline, there's a lot of great lawyers out there, and they're going to do a good job for you, and they're going to give you a good work product. But what differentiates me from somebody else mostly is who I am as a person, and how can I get out there who I am as a person, but through these thoughts that I have. And LinkedIn, for example, is a great platform to use when you want to get yourself out there and develop your brand. The other thing, and I'm sorry, I'm giving a soliloquy here. I'll let you ask a question.
I know our listeners are taking lots of notes here, so it's good.
Before I forget, I always look at it in two ways. You know, a Bernadette Catalana is a brand, and as long as that brand is held in high regard, that's good for MG+M the law firm, and vice versa. So MG+M the law firm and their brand brings me along, and Bernadette Catalana, my brand, brings the firm along. It's all intertwined with each other.
You hit on several important pieces there, and I'm going to try to walk through a couple of these just to really stress what I think is critically important. All too often, marketers and lawyers alike can easily overcomplicate what it means to market, right? And to build a brand. And Bernadette, I think you hit on something extremely important, which was you took some necessary steps on being an influencer, on creating a voice and being heard. And I would like to take some time maybe to talk through maybe any personal hesitancies you had before you did that. I think a lot of times we'll get in our own way and create all the reasons why we shouldn't take those steps or do this or that, or maybe it's around those negative comments that you received and the fear that comes with that. So I know it takes maybe a little vulnerability to speak to that, but would you mind maybe to speak to any hesitancies you had prior and looking back why those may have been lies you shared with yourself?
Anytime we put ourselves out there, this is what I think. We're making ourselves vulnerable to other people. I can, one parallel I can give to you is I actually wrote a book. I published a book earlier this year. And I remember thinking when I saw it on barnesandnoble.com, I thought, okay, I'm out there now. And I thought about, oh, do I put this on LinkedIn? Am I going to incorporate this into my professional persona? And then I thought, well, of course I am, because this is part of who I am. But oh yeah, there have been times, certainly when I wrote about the Dobbs decision, that I was extremely worried about not people's bad reactions. I can't control them, but I was worried that it might get ugly. And I didn't want to do anything to ever negatively impact the firm or my family. So I asked my adult children, I said, I'm going to write about this very controversial thing, and I want to know what you think about it. And unequivocally, the support from my children was, go for it. This is an important issue, and you have a voice that not everybody has. So I thought about it, and as you know, just as the year has developed, my book's been out a little while. I'm getting feedback on that. I'm beginning to realize I always heard people say vulnerability is strength, but I never understood that. Now I think I know it in a really personal way, because I've allowed myself to be vulnerable, not only in my personal life, but also among my professional peers. And I have been overwhelmed by the positive reactions of people and the support. It's been really gratifying.
That's powerful. And it's such an encouragement for everyone listening, because I know everyone hearing that, we resonate with it, because we've all been there. We're there today, and many of which are probably struggling with taking that next step or taking action in this moment because of one fear or assumed response. And so I appreciate you sharing that. And one thing I'll stress too is the power of authenticity and how that influences marketing. Because Bernadette, you've done an incredible job with this. You've also been willing to get out there to create knownness. You've been intentional of giving back and giving your expertise back to the community and mentoring. Those are all wonderful things. And while it's not the intention behind it, it puts you in a really positive light to the community. And that's a powerful thing to market. People do business with those that they know, like, and trust, first and foremost. And I think that's so important. Everything, Bernadette, you're sharing here is so powerful, even to the most basic of marketing. And so thank you for being willing to take time to share that story and encourage all of us. As we wrap up here, I'd like to ask any final thoughts or closing points that you would want to share with our listeners?
Yeah, I think that you have to start where you are. Know that being someone who posts things on LinkedIn probably isn't for everybody. Lawyers are, most of the time, by definition, overachievers. So we tend to be good at a lot of things or multiple things. But I think the starting point for everybody has to be find out what your strength is, your superpower. I had read about Babe Ruth, and everybody knows who Babe Ruth is, and he was this power hitter. He was also really bad at a lot of things, but he knew he was a power hitter, so he focused all his energy on that one thing he was really, really good at. So if we find in our context of being lawyers what we're good at, maybe we're really good at negotiating, or maybe you're really good at writing or at speaking or doing depositions. There's something that you're good at doing, maybe making connections and attracting business. Find out, identify that thing, and then work on that thing. Because if you're working on something that you're marginal at, you might get to be average. And I don't know. I don't know about you. I don't want to be average at something. I want to concentrate on something I'm really, really good at and get even better at it. And then you're sharing with the world the thing that you're probably supposed to be sharing with the world, that true talent. And what an easy thing to market if you do that.
I love that. Bernadette, what's the best way for folks to find you or reach out to you?
Well, they can certainly reach out to me on LinkedIn, or they can send me an email at Catalana, all A's in Catalana, at mgmlaw.com. And I would love to hear people's reactions. Love to, if there's a mentoring moment that you would like my thoughts on, I'm always looking for post ideas. So I would love to hear from anybody who wants to reach out.
Thanks again for joining the show.
Thanks, Tanner.
Lawsome by ConsultWebs with Tanner Jones. For show notes, links, and info, go to consultwebs.com/podcast. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. Watch for the next Lawsome episode to discover more breakthrough insights to build a thriving law firm.